Welcome back to another edition of the Ohio State of Mind podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Chen. On the other side of me is Joshua Keatley. It is Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. August is right around the corner. The Buckeyes open up uh, their fall camp here in a couple of days. It is episode number 38, the Austin Spittler episode. As you know, Josh, as we talked about just a few minutes ago, 38 is tough. There are not a lot of big time Buckeyes that have worn that number. So the linebacker from the late 2000s had to go with him.
Yeah, that's a good one. Very, very solid linebacker. I would classify him as like, I don't know. He was very Tommy Eichenberg like. He kind of
Yeah,
roamed the field and did a good job.
yeah.
He
I'd
followed
say
up
this.
James Laurinaitis, so it's not
Right.
really, you know
Big
what I mean?
shoes to
When
fill.
yeah. So it's like he kind of got I don't want to say shit on, but yeah, I mean he was good. He was a quality
You could
player.
say that.
A
I
little
say
bit.
you could say that.
He was a
I mean,
good
yeah,
player though.
no, you're right. The expectations of following a three-time All-American are
Not fair.
enormous, right? It's not
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
And I think he was a solid linebacker. He obviously he got drafted in the NFL as well. So like,
Yep.
let's be real here. It's not like he was, just a dude out there,
No.
not doing anything.
No.
He was good. He was good.
Very solid.
He's definitely
Very solid.
very solid.
I would
But
put him in the same category as like we talked about Eichenberg, maybe James Cotton. James Cotton came
sure,
up in a conversation recently. That's
sure,
another guy
sure,
probably
sure.
falls in that same category.
Yeah.
There's two other guys. Is it just two or is it three? Let me double check my notes here. There's two other guys, there's three running backs / fullbacks that are on the list. Brandon Joe
Joe was
probably,
number two. He was number two.
yep,
It was between Spittler and Joe, and I
with
was so close to. I was like literally this close to go with Brandon Joe, but reason being is the stats.
yeah,
The stats just aren't quite there for Joe. I mean, he was a starter,
no,
got a lot of run. Trestle ball back then. So
great, baby.
yeah, I love Trestle ball. Hey, there it is. Look at that. Look at
There's the
that.
good old the Brandon Joe autograph. Brandon Joe, he played a vital role in the national championship team, and most important statistic of all is that he was the highest rated Ohio State Buckeye at 98 overall
Crazy.
in NCAA 2004, I think.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah,
Because it's like they do the
crazy,
year below.
crazy. A fullback.
Yes,
So
yes.
give him the ball a lot.
Oh yeah, you moved him to right back. He was cool.
Yeah.
I had the chance to talk to him about that recently, and he told me that Herb Street actually called him to let him know,
Oh wow.
and he was supposed to be a 99 overall, and
Really?
they bumped him down to it. I think I thought he was like a 96, but he told me that he was a 99. He was supposed to be a 99, but either way. And then there's obviously there's Von Brodnax is another guy.
Oh, there it is.
Dude, I have all the helmets for these guys. Number 38. Von Brodnax was a big time fullback in the early 80s. I think he was on Earl Bruce's first team. He was second in the Big Ten in touchdowns. His last year on campus.
Vulture in those bad boys.
Yeah. That's basically what it was. I think he had 10 touchdowns, which was second in the Big Ten, which obviously, if you're an Ohio State fan, that's kind of how it went with fullbacks at Ohio State.
Right.
I think Johnson had more touchdowns than Archie Griffin.
Yeah.
The year he won the Heisman. And then the last but not least is Champ Henson. Every true Buckeye fan will remember Champ Henson. His NFL career was short because of injuries, but he led college football, and I believe it was rushing yards and rushing touchdowns.
Crazy.
While he was his last 2 years at Ohio State. I mean, he was a goddamn stud. He was on the cover of Street and Smith, preseason magazines, all that good stuff. Champ Henson was an absolute beast. Does not get enough credit because he suffered such a devastating injury. Not a lot of people remember him, but he was a stat monster. So yeah, 38. Not a lot of big name recognition, but a lot of guys who had very successful careers that were just road graders and did their job very well. Hey, Chris, we see you, my guys. Anything good this past weekend? We're about to dive into some recent news here, but I've rambled on enough about the number 38, Mike. So, where do you want to go from here?
All right, well, let's get into a little Ohio State recruiting. So this past weekend was the last weekend that schools could potentially host recruits, on unofficials and, have them on campus because the dead period started on Monday.
Yes.
And so Ohio State specifically decided not to have a large gathering of prospects. Now they could have had, they could have had the next class, like 26 players come in. They also could have had obviously 25 players come in. Hell, you could even have 27 players come in, I believe. I don't think there's any rules against that. So the Buckeyes opted not to have any big time recruits on campus. And yes, they do currently have the number one class in the country, according to 247 Sports Composite. Like, let's be real here. The class is awesome. But the biggest fish out there, that dude, David Sanders Jr., the offensive tackle, went to Tennessee, went to Nebraska. 2 of his other 4 finalists, he's set to verbal on August 17th, which is my birthday. I'd love a birthday gift from David Sanders. But my biggest qualm with this whole recruiting weekend and the Buckeyes deciding not to do anything was the fact that Sanders, the number 1 target left on the board, arguably the number 1 player in the country because he's an offensive tackle, went to 2 of his other 4 finalists. Ohio State didn't get that opportunity to have him on campus another time. Now, he's been on campus multiple times. Ohio State, by many, was viewed as the leader going into this past weekend. Now, everyone's saying that Tennessee has jumped ahead and Nebraska is a dark horse and the Buckeyes are running. So I'm kind of pissed a little bit because offensive tackle is a position that is like, they sorely need a dude, like that dude. They don't have one. They've recruited solid guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're recruiting a bunch of crap and the offensive line is going to be terrible for the next few years. But what I'm saying is they don't have that guy. The one guy where you're like, he is awesome. He's going to be a starter for 2 to 3 years. Then he's going to go off to the NFL. They don't have that.
Yeah,
and they had an opportunity to have him on campus, and they didn't. And he went to 2 of the other competitors.
I don't think what you're saying about David Sanders Jr., comparing him to the current recruits, the current players we have on the roster, is insulting by any means. I do want to – a lot of the guys that they have gotten that fit that same billing, maybe they are as good as David Sanders. Maybe they'll be better. I don't know. But what we do know is that they're in the backyard. They're 3-star recruits. That you should if I'm the offensive line coach, I should be able to pull those guys in because they're in your backyard, right? They got the 2 brothers from St. Ed's.
The Armstrongs
from St. Ed's, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
From Ed's.
The big offensive line recruit from this past year was Ian Moore, who was from Indiana, who's on the interior.
Palestine.
And
like, so, let's be real here. Indiana high school football's not all that great.
Well, either way, he was. I'm still going to give them credit for pulling him in. That was a 4-star that was highly touted, but he is an interior guy. No one has ever claimed that he's going to be on the outside. So I think it's fair to point out that David Sanders is a big deal, right? And I saw that a lot of people on Twitter. I know that you're. I get a lot of people call me the Ryan Day hater. People should be calling you, but you're the Justin Fry hater, right? I feel like you hate Justin Fry more than I hate Ryan Day, and a lot of people agree with a lot of people agree with your stance. So I do think it's a big deal. I like to think that Ohio State does have a plan. If there's one thing that Ryan Day and his coaching staff has done extremely well since he's gotten there is recruit at a very high level. He seems to know how to line these guys up. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that they have a plan. But maybe you were right a couple weeks ago when we talked about that chick leaving that was in charge of scheduling all this. Maybe her leaving is the reason why this didn't happen. I don't know. But you did see Ohio State did lose defensive lineman that they were really, really trying to get. He was a 3-star, so it's not like a program burner. But I'm not going to sit here and act like I've watched this film, guys. I have not. But it was a 3-star that Ohio State was heavily invested in that committed to Tennessee. So because they had their big event, rumors are that they had their big event this past weekend.
No, they did. No, not rumors. They did.
But I'm sorry. The rumors were that he was narrowed down to 2 schools. It was Tennessee and Ohio State. But even that might not be a rumor. I think he might have actually just came out and said it. So I see your point. I see your frustration. I like to think that this is one category or situation where Ryan Day and his coaching staff really shines. So I'm hoping that it's not as big as a deal as we thought. I also don't know if David Sanders is the best barometer for its impact, because was that guy, you know what I mean? Like if David Sanders doesn't come in, are you solely going to blame this weekend, or does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes. No, I get it. Recruiting is the long game. It's not one weekend that will, make a difference. But
maybe it is. I don't know. I'm asking you. I don't know.
But on the other hand, though, you're talking about a guy who's down to 4 schools, and you have an opportunity to host him on the last time that he could physically be on campus, when you can really contact with him and get a chance to really kind of remind him, hey, this is why you want to be here, and didn't do it. And that frustrates the crap out of me, because I watched multiple other teams across the country have recruiting events this weekend and get things out of it. Commitments, as you talked about. Defensive end, committing to, I don't know, where did he commit to?
Well, the defensive lineman committed to Tennessee. I believe it was
Tennessee. Right?
Darion Smith or something like that. Again,
okay.
I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a recruiting expert.
Sure. Yeah, I missed that. But like, they still had it, right?
Chris says
exactly.
It's like saying you're at the finish line, they coast in the first gear.
Like, why? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's really frustrating, because there's 2.5 weeks, or technically, I guess last weekend, but 3 weeks. There's 3 weeks until he makes his decision. And this is the last time that you can actually really try to win him over, push it over the edge. And as Chris saying, you don't want to coast, right? Because there's that team that's right on your ass. And then all of a sudden you try to coast over the finish line and they pass you and you end up in second. And that is what I've seen so many damn times with Justin Fry and his recruiting of offensive linemen. Now, look, let's look at this year, and we'll just say he doesn't land Carter Lowe, who's from Toledo. He doesn't land him, and clearly heads are flying, right? But he did. So he's getting a little bit of leeway with that.
So far, we have to put in the asterisk where, these guys can still flip. I keep seeing where everybody's talking about this Ohio State recruiting class and how great it's going to be. And I agree. I'm excited about it. And every article that I've written about this week has been recruiting. And I think I've added the asterisk, like, this is the new recruiting class. So I'm excited about it as well. But we do need to put that asterisk there, because we've seen it before.
Sure.
Where these guys back out the last second. So Justin Fry you got me blaming Fry too. We see where Ohio State has Carter Lowe locked up now, but things could change. So I just want to put that asterisk on what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hope Carter Lowe's not swaying. I mean, I've not seen anything,
I don't know,
recruiting wise, that says that he could potentially flip to another school.
Me neither.
But sometimes guys kind of fly under the radar and don't talk to reporters and kind of do things, where other people can't see. Now, with social media these days, if a guy goes and visits another school, you damn well know someone's going to say something. I don't think Lowe went anywhere. I think he's pretty much locked in. But still, that's that guy you should take for granted, because he's in your backyard. You've got a top 50 player in your backyard, and you've got to land it. Ohio State hasn't landed all of them this year either, and they're probably not.
No, I agree with you. I know that recruiting is a big part of your reasoning for disliking Justin Fry. I think we both can agree that Justin Fry is on the hot seat, right? He is the new Parker Fleming, where there are expectations. For the record, when they hired Justin Fry, I'm not going to sit here and act like I didn't like it. I did like it. That was a guy that had some play calling experience that they hired as the offensive line coach. You always think that's a win, right? So I'm not going to sit here and act like I didn't like the hire. I think that with Chip Kelly being there, I think there was some extra pizzazz. I still have high hopes for Justin Fry. I think he can turn around. My thing about focusing on Justin Fry, though, is less about recruiting, and it's more about development. I need to see Ryan Montgomery or Tegra Shabola or Carson Hinsman develop. I need to see those guys. Those guys, 2 of those 3 guys should be all Big Ten by the end of the season. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for it.
It's both for me. Donovan Jackson, man, took a step back last year. Everyone was talking about how he could be a potential second round pick. Guards don't really go in the first round, but a second round pick for a guard's pretty damn good. And he regressed last year. He was worse than he was during his sophomore season.
I'm not gonna blame him for Donovan Jackson's.
Why not?
I'm not gonna blame him because I don't think that's development. When you look at development,
but it's regression. It's regression. You should be on a linear path forward, and he went backward last year.
But here's the situation, right? When you talk about progression, you take this 5-star guy, you take this ball of Play-Doh, and if he still leaves as a ball of Play-Doh, you didn't do your job. Donovan Jackson, we know he's great. We've seen him be great. We've seen him be an All-American.
He takes a step back. Can you really give Justin Fry credit for developing a guy?
No. I'm not giving him credit for Donovan Jackson. I'm not giving him credit for Donovan Jackson being great. I'm saying I'm not going to blame him for Donovan Jackson taking a step back. I think that some of the reason Donovan Jackson took a step back is that he's playing beside Josh Simmons, who's getting used to Big Ten play, and then they're breaking in a new center in Carson Hinzman. I think that takes a toll on you because not when you're playing next to Paris Johnson, you know what I mean? Like that, you don't have to worry about that guy. Josh Simmons struggled. You said it yourself. Josh Simmons struggled at the beginning of the year last year. You didn't like Josh Simmons.
No, I was unhappy with him for sure.
So that if you're playing guard and you're looking out for that guy, you're taking on more than you need. You're taking on more responsibilities than you can handle. So I think that is more of a detriment to his progression than anything. When you're looking at, that's like blaming Brian Hartline for Mecca Igbokwe taking a step back, right?
Well, Mecca Igbokwe is injuries. That's a legit concern. It's injuries. There was no injury to Jackson. He played every game.
I understand that, but progression should be seen when you're looking. I understand what you're saying, but you're right. Injury is much more black and white, but a progression is much more visible when you look at these. We both agree that Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinzman, and Tegra Bullard were both high 4-star guys that we heard a lot about, and they haven't fucking played. Why are they not playing? Why are we hearing about them, but they're not playing? Why can't you develop any of these guys into starters? So I'm not the Donovan Jackson thing. I think that if that Donovan, you know what I mean? Like that's like, the hot pockets out of the microwave a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, blaming Tony Alford for Travion Henderson's development, which I get. I know that's injury, but still, okay, Maya Williams. I mean, where does it end? You know what I mean?
Mine was hurt this past year too. So, I get where you're coming from. I completely do, and I get it. But I also think that a guy's job, and even if Donovan Jackson didn't improve from his sophomore or junior year, and he was the exact same, I wouldn't have any qualms with that. But the fact is that we saw regression out of him. That concerns the crap. That tells me that he's not doing something right. He's missing on something, because once a guy has mastered a certain aspect of offensive line play, he should be continuing to add to his bag. We shouldn't see tools getting taken. And that is my
what tools did you what did you
he got beat way more, and I get that. You're right. You're 100% correct with the fact that he had Paris Johnson to his left for 2 years. Right?
Yeah.
Like, 100%.
He's one of the best off the tackles in Ohio State history.
No questions. I completely agree with that. But if you're a guy that was on preseason All-American lists, who everyone believed was probably going to be a 3-and-out offensive lineman, and you don't perform at that level or anywhere even close, because was he even an All Big Ten performer this past year? Might have been, maybe at third team or maybe honorable mention. But still, though, this is a guy that was on All-American list to start the year. And if you're third team Big Ten, that means you're, in 2-6, you're like top 6 in the conference when everyone expected him to be top 2 in the conference, right? So that's what that bothers me. And it's, I know we're going off on a little tangent with this Justin Fry thing, but just to close it, he needs that big dude. He needs that recruiting win. And yes, I get it. Carter Lowe, I believe he's like
he was first.
He's a top 50 last year. He's a top 50. Who? Donovan Jackson?
Yes.
Coaches or media?
Both.
Really? Didn't seem.
Either way, I'm not going to sit here and act like he had an All-American level season. He didn't. I just think that's fine. We both agree that Justin Fry's on the hot seat. I just don't think that Donovan Jackson's. It's like I don't know. I know that those other guys were injured, but do you blame I mean, there's a bunch of we saw it with Drake May. Do you blame Mac Brown for Drake May sucking last year? No, he lost 3 of his top receivers. Drake May was still a top 5 pick, right? Your supporting cast matters.
That's a little bit
and
different.
I feel like
That's
people take that for granted.
I think
it's
as
not
a head
different
coach,
at all.
I think as a head coach comparing to a position coach, I think it's a little bit different because it's just one group, and you can
I don't know
single
who the
out,
North Carolina
and then you
position
can
coach
single,
is.
and that right. That's what I'm saying. Like you could just single out again. So I don't know. Regardless, Justin Fry, man, you got to step your game up. Otherwise, you can get your ass booted out of here.
I agree.
I don't. All right, let's continue to stay on the offensive side. Let's talk about wide receivers.
Yes.
So, as you all have known, since you've been listening, I hope, over the past few weeks, we've been going over the top 5 Big Ten position players. We started with quarterbacks. Last week, we were doing wide receivers. This week, we'll hit, running backs. This week, we are hitting wide receivers. So, with that in mind, we will start off and we'll go from top to bottom. We'll go with our number 1. My number 1's pretty easy as long as he stays healthy. Emeka Egbuka is the best wide receiver in the Big Ten, hands down.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Emeka Egbuka was hurt last year, and he still was very productive. He spent the last 2 years kind of being in the shadow of Marvin Harrison Jr. That shadow's gone. He had over 1,100 yards 2 years ago and 10 touchdowns. I expect that same kind of production, if not more.
Agreed.
He's a first round caliber receiver. So yeah, we both agree with that. And Chris, since you're watching, let us know what you feel about our picks. You can kind of be the deciding factor, kind of like Donovan was last week. You want me to get my number 2?
Yeah, go ahead.
2, J. Michael Sturdivant from UCLA. I think that he had a down year last year. I think he's definitely up for an uptick this year because it feels like they know what they're going to do at the quarterback position a little bit more. He's a big, long target at 6'3", explosive playmaker. Also probably a first-round caliber receiver. So,
my issue with that pick is he plays on such a terrible team with a bad offense and a new head coach.
That's fair criticism.
I would say if we were ranking NFL prospects,
sure,
I would 100% agree with that analysis, like 100%. But that's not what we're doing. So, with that in mind,
we never really.
Well, I guess.
I guess
we should. We probably should have.
We should.
Laid out some ground.
We did do that with the quarterbacks, right? So my rankings are based off of where your expectations are and how you're going to end the season, right? Emeka Egbuka, I feel like everybody's sleeping on him because of the Marvin Harrison thing. J. Michael Sturdivant, and Chris apparently agrees with you. Such a bad team around him, but you can't. What is? Here's the issue with that. So every time there's a shitty team, you can't say that the guy's good. I mean, you know what I mean? Like last week, you had Monange from Rutgers in your top 5.
Yeah. You're right.
Running backs, and and their quarterback is the Greek leak or whatever that guy's name who sucked at Minnesota, Eli Kalikimaka. So you know they will throw the ball worth the shit.
Well, right. That's exactly why I had him up on my list because they know he's gonna get the ball a bunch.
but you could make the same. But my thought process, I guess, is if they're not gonna throw the ball, you're gonna stack the box and basically.
Can you even name UCLA's quarterback?
UCLA's quarterback? It's Chase Garbers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Garbers. He transferred from Cal. His brother's in the USL.
I did not know who.
It's Garbers. Yeah. Right. Who could sling the rock? I agree with you guys. They're going to be bad, but my rankings are based on expectation. I feel like no one really talks about them. There's a lot of hype around a lot of other receivers in the Big Ten, and I feel like at the end of the year, he's going to be a guy that's going to be, probably first team, and everybody's gonna be like, "Whoa, what happened?" We've seen it before. Indiana, I think they had like Ty Freifogel was like a really high. I thought he was first team Big Ten when he was at Indiana. There was there's been guys in the past, Wisconsin when they had Quentin Cephas, guys like that. So Ethan Garbers, thank you, Donovan. That's why I thought I said that. I said Chase, his brother. My bad. Thanks, Donovan. But yeah, so that's kind of my at with Michael Sturdivant. But that, like I said, I understand why you don't have him in your top 5. You don't have to, but I think he should be in everybody's top 10.
Yeah. So I've got Zachariah Branch, the sophomore wide receiver from USC. Uh, I just I love what he brings to the game. He's electric. He can take a 5 yard out and take it to the house 80 yards. The dude's just absolutely a game breaker. And actually, what pushed me over the edge with Branch was I saw a picture of him from last year during his freshman year, and now this year as he's heading into his sophomore year, and he looks absolutely jacked up. Now he's a smaller receiver as it is, anyways, but he looks just like a completely different person. So I think he's in line for a huge season. I think the USC offense isn't really going to skip too much of a beat. Obviously, if you listened last week, we went over all that stuff as well with Donovan right here. So
Yeah.
and I think that I think he's lined for a monster season. I don't care who's the quarterback really. He's just so electric. As Donovan said, he believes it's going to be Miller Moss. So if it's Miller Moss and Miller Moss can continue to do what he did in their bowl game, then Zachariah Branch is going to be a monster. Absolutely monster.
Yeah, I like Zachariah Branch. I had him number 7, mostly because I feel like he gets a lot more credit because of his special teams ability. I feel like there's some better. I feel like there's some better pure receivers in the Big Ten, but I'm not going to argue that.
But I think he just takes. I think he takes that next step.
That's fine. Yeah,
as a freshman, you want to ease them into the college experience for the most part. But I think he's in line for just a huge sophomore.
Yeah, no, that like I said, that's I totally see what you're saying. I was just trying to justify why I had it on my top 5. Donovan says, "Miss you guys, love the show. Watch out for Julian Fleming. Have a great season." Donovan, I think that so I don't have Julian Fleming in my top 10 because I've seen him drop too many passes and I've seen him take his toll. I do think he's going to be the go-to guy for Penn State. I do think he's going to be the leading receiver, but I think that the guy that's going to make the receiver that's going to make the Penn State offense go is probably going to be the tight end. I don't have Julian Fleming on my list. Michael hates Julian Fleming for
like a passion, almost as much as I hate Justin Fleming.
Chris, I got 2 ducks, a buck, a Trojan, and a Hoosier in my top 5 gents. But I'm coming around the UCLA kid. Oh man, we're gonna get to some IU dudes. So you had some Zachariah Branches.
That is very like depending on where you're ranking all of those players. That is exactly who I have on my list.
What's your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is Evan Stewart at Oregon. A little bit on the smaller side, a little bit more of a slot. He's only like 6 feet tall, but he's got Dylan Gabriel. The Oregon offensive line is very good. And yes, he's a transfer, and both Oregon guys on my list are transfers, but I think that they can have huge seasons.
Yeah, I have Evan Stewart as my number 3 as well. In 2 seasons at Texas A&M, he had 91 receptions, and most of the focus was on him. Right. So when you're going to Oregon
in a bad offense.
I mean, I don't want to say it's. I mean, Connor Weigman is a really good quarterback. They couldn't get it meshing well, but I'm not going to sit here and act like there was no talent around it. But the receiving focus, the defensive backs coverage focus was definitely towards Evan Stewart. They're not going to have that option at Oregon because Tez Johnson's on the other side. So I do look for Evan Stewart to really separate himself amongst those guys. Number 4. Now, this is where we're probably going to agree but disagree. I do have Jeremiah Smith. Again, my list is about expectations. So he may not be on your list because your expectations are higher than mine. My expectations that after talking to people, again, this is like kind of the national landscape. I know everybody in Ohio and in the Big Ten country kind of feels like those guys are on radar as far as Jeremiah Smith goes. Surprisingly, when you talk to other people, though, they don't really a lot of people don't even realize Jeremiah Smith is going to be a dude. They're talking about, Brandon Ennis, Cardell Tate. They don't realize that he's even going to be starting. So I think when he does start and he does get, number 2 receiver stats and he is all Big Ten, and I assume he's going to have some highlight catches, it is going to put the nation on alert. So, by the end of the season, even though he might not stack up statistically to guys like Evan Stewart, Michael Sturdivant, Emeka Egbuka, I do expect him to have enough highlight reels to kind of put him in that talk. Jacoby Lane from USC, I think, is kind of not in the same tier. I have him on my number 10 wide receiver, but what he did at the Holiday Bowl, I expect for Jeremiah Smith this year, just on a few more scales, right? He Lane did it 1 time. Sure. I expect Jeremiah Smith to maybe do it 3 times.
Sure. I did not have Jeremiah Smith in my top 5. I had him 6.
I'm so shocked by that.
I knew you would be. I knew you would be. But the only reason I did that is because I think that he's going to have a couple of games where he's not all that. I think he's going to have a couple games where he's frustrated. He'll have one catch for like 10 yards, 12 yards, right? I think he's going to have a couple of those games where it's like, oh, yeah, this kid's a freshman. Then he's also going to have a couple of games where he catches 6 passes for 150 yards and 3 scores. And you're like, this guy is a superstar. I think the consistency factor with Smith kind of drops him down a little bit for me, just a little bit. I mean, he was 6 on my list. It's not like, and I was so close to putting him at 5. Like I was like debating in my head, like, do I put him at 5? Do I put him at 5? Do I put him at 5? I ended up not doing it because I think the consistency aspect of his game isn't going to be quite at the level of some of the other guys on my list. So I had Tez Johnson from Oregon at number 4.
That's
another transfer. I think that they're that pair is just one of the best pairs in the Big Ten. Rivals Ohio State's, and I think he's in line for a big season. Again, another transfer. We're talking about.
Well, he was at Oregon last year though.
Right. But he transferred. He transferred prior. So
yes, he was at Troy 2 years ago. Yeah. So I really want to argue about the Jeremiah Smith thing, but I'm going to let it go because we're only 2 off.
Just give me a little bit of it. Just give me a little bit.
I feel like 3 of our podcasts this offseason were about our arguments about fucking Jeremiah Smith, and now you're like, well, I don't know. There's gonna be it's like
he's 6. He's 6, which
that's why I'm not going to argue about it.
Which would put him second team All Big Ten. He's probably on everyone's freshman All-American lists. I'm not saying he's going to have a bad season. I'm just saying that due to experience factors, these other guys that are on my list, I believe, will have better seasons, more consistent seasons. That's it. He's a superstar in the making. I am still not getting off of the Jeremiah Smith train.
Chris, I'm with you. I was the one that was talking shit about him all off season. I was the one that said if he gets 5 receptions for 200 yards like Carnell Tate did, I'm not going to be upset. I believe it was Mike who said that if he got less than 600, he was going to be fucking devastated.
No, and I think he will. Like I said, if he goes out
clear
and gets, if he does what I said, 5 catches, 150 yards, couple touchdowns, right?
And
he's going to get to that 600. Is he going to have that type of game every single time out? He's not.
I don't know. I like I said, my list is based off of expectation plays a role.
Sure.
Right. I think that he is going to. I think that by the end of the season, people are going to look and be like, "Oh shit, who's that freshman?"
Right. No. I don't disagree. 100%. All right, moving on.
I think that I think that the opportunity is going to present itself for Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith is going to start. He's going to play
100%.
And again,
what
we're talking about, what our previous conversations were about, for everybody that's listening, Chris Runyon says, so you've had a sip of the Kool-Aid within the last few weeks. I've always been excited about Jeremiah Smith. I've always said Jeremiah Smith is an elite recruit. The big argument was that Michael was like, hey, I'm stating this is going to fucking happen. There's no leeway, 600 receiving yards. This is going to happen. And I was like, whoa, I agree with that. I think that that's fair. But if it doesn't happen, how are you going to react? And he was like, it's going to happen. And I just more or less, I'm like, well, I don't know if that's my stance was I'm not going to be devastated. If he gets 5 receptions this year, I'm not going to be devastated. And I still stand by that. But this list,
if he's going to be a starter and get 5 receptions, you should be devastated.
I could, but I might be wrong. But I might be wrong. If they walk out, this is my I understand. I think that with the opportunity that he's presenting himself and his physical ability, he could end up the season as a top 5 receiver in the Big Ten. I could be wrong. They could waltz out Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and Emeka Egbuka and Jaden Ballard, and we might never see Jeremiah Smith, and I would be okay with that. This is just my I don't want to call it a guess because I would be slightly disappointed if he doesn't make my list. But I had Drew Aller as my number 1 quarterback in the Big Ten, right?
Sure.
So that it's hey, I think that this could happen. I really would like to put all my eggs in this basket.
Sure.
right?
Sure.
That's kind of where I was at. Tez Johnson, yeah, I agree. I had Tez Johnson 6.
Okay.
I didn't want to put 2 Oregon Ducks in my top 5. He is the best threat in college football, though. Pure speed, nothing but speed. He has the Oregon season record for 86 receptions. We'll see what he can do when his brother's not throwing him the ball. I'm joking, of course. He's going to be great, but that is a fun fact. He should have 5 receptions. Chris says he should have 5 receptions play with the second squad week 1 for Sacramento. I don't know. I don't know how long he's still a freshman. I don't know.
So
I don't
here's
know.
The thing. Here's the thing. Let me get into this whole starting thing real quick with Jeremiah Smith.
Sure.
When Ryan Day was asked at Big Ten Media Days, who's stepping up in wide receiver, he didn't mention 2 wide receivers, but he mentioned 3 others. He mentioned Cardell Tate. He mentioned Inus. And who was what's his name? And why am I blanking on his name? Jaden Ballard. I'm sorry. He mentioned those 3 who need to step up. Who he didn't mention, who we assume are going to play a lot, Micah Igbuka, Jeremiah Smith. I think Jeremiah Smith starts from day 1.
So to preface this,
I'm just reading between the lines here.
No, I'm not arguing with them. I'm saying so Garrett Wilson as a freshman had 30 receptions, 432 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I think that if Jeremiah Smith gets, and at the end of that year when Garrett Wilson did it, because that was backloaded, if you guys remember, right? A lot of those stats were backloaded that season. We walked into the next season with him as a sophomore saying, my God, this guy's good. Because all it took was the opportunity and the time. You can shine. You can make this is not a statistical list. Yours might be. Mine's not. Mine is based off of, hey, what are we going to be saying? And at the end of the year, I think during bowl prep, we're all going to be saying, man, that Garrett Wilson, he may have only had 5 touchdowns during the year, but my God, they were,
he's going to be a star.
Right. He got 3 of them against Michigan or whatever. You could tell. So I think that and I guess that clarifies the argument, right? Like, I don't need the stats to necessarily believe that he's going to be a good guy, a good receiver. Chris has Tez as number 1. That's fine. Tez was the dude at Oregon. He was the number 2 dude. Tony Franklin. Franklin is gone. Jesus Christ. Tony Franklin, the fucking head coach. I can't even remember anybody's names. I'm mixing up brothers. I'm mixing up coaches. I'm mixing up receivers. My number 5 receiver, Elijah Surratt from Indiana. He had 82 receptions for 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns last year at James Madison. He follows Kirk Cignetti at IU. The dude is a baller. He's 6'2". He already has the size, speed. This will be his 3rd school. This is a guy who dominated at the Division II level. Might be FBS. Well, he was at Pennsylvania. He was at St. Francis of Pennsylvania. I think that's Division II. And then he dominated James Madison, and I fully expect him to dominate this season at Indiana as well.
I have no disagreements with that. He was actually my 5th as well. I completely agree with your assessment there. I think that he's, following Cignetti. He's familiar with the offense. He knows how to find holes in it. I think he's going to, regardless of who's throwing the ball, I think he's going to be awesome.
Well, here's my question for you, though. So why would you have an Indiana guy in your top 5?
Over Jeremiah Smith?
No. But earlier when I had the UCLA guy in the top 5, you were like, no.
Well, I think that UCLA overall is just a horrendous team. Whereas I think Indiana will score points. I think they're going to give up a shit ton of points as well. Whereas I don't think UCLA is going to score a lot. I think they're going to get scored on a lot. So that's where my difference between those 2 guys comes from.
Well, so now I have to ask you, who do you think the Indiana quarterback's going to be?
I have no idea. I really don't care.
So I
think Surratt is so good. I think Surratt is so good that it doesn't matter who's throwing them.
It is going to be Curtis Rourke. Curtis Rourke comes from Ohio University. Woo, OU. Younger brother of Nathan Rourke, who anybody pays attention to the CFL here. Idaho Potato Bowl MVP went up to be whatever. No one does apparently. So, but Curtis Rourke. A little fun fact about Curtis Rourke. Curtis Rourke is going to be the most athletic quarterback in the Big Ten, and no one's talking about it. I didn't put him in my top 5 list because he gets hurt a lot, and the arm talent might not be there. But he's extremely athletic. But yeah, that's who's going to be the quarterback at IU. IU's got another fun receiver too, and Donovan McCulley. He did not make my list. Well, I'll let you go. Your number 5. I apologize.
No. I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah.
So some other guys I had on my list. Well, are there any other guys on like
So
that you had?
I Jeremiah Smith, Daniel Jackson from Minnesota, and then also had Jeremiah Hunter from Washington.
Who was your last one?
Jeremiah Hunter, Washington.
So my issue with I Jackson at Minnesota. He's a stud. He's big. He's tall. He's fast. He's explosive. He's always hurt, and he goes just fucking blank for plays. Like, and I watched the game, and I would love to blame the Greek quarterback. What is his nickname? The Greek pistol or the Greek
something
rifle?
like that. He come out.
Yeah, something
stupid. I can't even pronounce his name. It's.
Well, remember, but PJ Fleck said he was going to be the first round quarterback in Minnesota history. But whatever. And he was bad. He was real bad. But
his birthday was Arthur.
Yeah, I was when I watched the game when they played last year, I kept thinking, oh, the Greek guy's he's just not hitting them. But Jackson never really. I don't know. There's just something about it's just like he takes these long breaks where he does nothing. Sure. It's really strange. It kind of. I guess we talked about Quentin Cephas from Washington or from Wisconsin a couple of years ago. I would put him in that category. Washington, they have a incoming transfer wide receiver that went gangbusters in the spring game. And I almost put on my list. What's his name? Donovan, you're the West Coast guy. Boston, Batten. Donovan's not here with us anymore.
I don't know. What I do know is that better quarterback situation than UCLA.
Denzel Boston was, but yeah. So Washington's one of those guys is going to get stats. Some other guys that I had on my list: Donovan McCulley, Indiana. You probably remember him. He was a quarterback recruit.
Sure.
They moved him to wide receiver, 6'5". He had some up and down moments, but the up moments were up. So, and then Caden Prather from Maryland.
Okay.
He was all Big Ten last year. They're losing young Tagovailoa. So I'm assuming I'm assuming that the production is going to go down for Prather, especially since they lose. Who else did they lose? Was it Raheem Jarrett? No, that was 2 years ago. They lose some other talent too. So I don't know. I think his production might slip. And then Jacoby Lane from USC. He had a big Holiday Bowl, and Zachariah Branch gets a lot of attention. So this is kind of like very similar to the Jeremiah Smith thing, where I think that we should monitor him. He's a true sophomore. Saw some playing time last year as a true freshman. And I think that people aren't talking about him at all. And I think by the end of the year they could be like, well, hey, this is pretty interesting, So those are some other guys I thought slip in there. But yeah, I think we had the exact same 5 guys. Other than you had Tez Johnson. No, you had Zachariah Branch and Jeremiah
Sturdivant. Right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and I had Sturdivant, and you had Tez Johnson.
Right. Yes. Right.
So overall.
Not bad.
Yeah,
we're pretty
all
close.
Of mine were my top 7. I think all yours were in your top 7. So
we're pretty close. We're pretty close.
Yeah.
We're pretty close. All right.
Christian Scott, Ted Johnson,
Evan Stewart. Lynch. Solid list. I mean,
I think
complaints here.
You could probably exchange those 10 guys, really, and I wouldn't. Because again, somebody's going to pop up. Someone's going to pop. That's the key. That's what we're trying to. That's what I'm trying to do. Is try to figure out who's going to pop up because I want to be the first to say his name.
Right. All right. One last thing before we cut out today. Court Williams, the Ohio State linebacker, has medically retired. 40 surgeries, 3 shoulder. I can't even say shoulder. 3 shoulder. 3 shoulder surgeries. There, I said it right that time. It hurts to hear when a player doesn't leave on their own accord. When they're forced to medically retire. I mean, 7 surgeries in, 4 years. You got to feel for the young man. Hopefully he does, everything is needed in the classroom and leaves Columbus with a degree. And, or he may have already, because some guys go pretty quick since they're on campus in the summer and might not take classes, right?
Dude, he's been there for a while too, right?
Yeah, like 4 to 5 years, right?
I don't know. He might already. Yeah, he was in the class of 2020, so he's probably got that degree.
Yeah. So if he wants to, I'm Ryan Day. Do you want to be, one of the student coaches? Like, why not? Right? The NCAA has allowed however many coaches as you want. You don't have to pay student coaches either. And so if he wants to start a coaching career and get into that, use his degree, clearly he can be still around the team because usually they don't, tell those guys to go F off, right? So
No, oh
it's
God,
just
no.
right. It's just sad. I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that he was going to have a bigger impact, but obviously injuries held him off the field, and we won't ever see him again in a Buckeye uniform.
Yeah, it's a damn shame. I'm sure you're more familiar with his recruitment than I, but he was a 4-star,
right,
All-American level recruit at linebacker, and he kind of got shuffled around a little bit. We talked about William White. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me today? We talked about his son, Brendan White, a couple weeks ago on the podcast about his story getting moved around from safety to linebacker to bullet. Court Williams kind of dealt with the same thing, so he never really caught his footing. By the time he did catch his footing, he kept getting hurt. But he was a big, physical, fast guy. Very much was getting the Sonny Styles hype before the Sonny Styles happened. A little bit. I know Sonny Styles was more heralded recruit, but I mean, you would agree with that. Like he was kind of we talked about him every spring as kind of the size, speed, strength freak. There was rumors. We all felt pretty confident during spring practices that he was going to be on the 2 deep at linebacker and that he was going to see some time. It's not a huge hit because it's hard to say like it's a hit if the guy never sees the field and he wasn't a projected starter. But I think
healthy.
but we agree that he was probably going to be in the 2 deep if he was healthy. So it does open up a door for a guy like Gabe Powers, I suppose. I don't know.
Maybe one of the freshmen.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame though. I had the honor to talk to Williams a few times, and he's always been very pleasant. Another ironic thing is too, wasn't he injured during All-American practices in high school too?
I can't remember that far back.
I'm pretty sure he was, dude. That'd be a good Google. Chris, if you're there, Google that. I'm pretty sure Kurt Williams was injured for that too.
Yeah. Well, either way, it sucks for Court, and we hope.
Yeah, God bless him.
We wish him the best in his post football career, whatever he may be doing. It just sucks. Sucks.
And it happens all. Was Armani Reeves happened to Armani Reeves a couple of years ago. He was starting.
Yeah, Jamel Dean. They tried to do it to him and went and transferred to Auburn and kept playing. Now he's great. He's great for the Bucks. He's had a couple really. He's had a couple really good seasons for Tampa Bay.
Yeah. There's been some other Why can't I think of any more medical guys? That's sad. Harry Miller obviously is probably one of the
Harry
more
Miller. Yep.
God,
he's actually Harry Miller every once in a while posts on social media that like he's lost a bunch of weight. He's like started weight training again. And looks like he's he's regaining some of that strength. Yeah, I mean
he's gonna do the Tony Mandarich and come back 4 years later.
I highly doubt that he's gonna play football again. But health wise, young man is healthy.
The quarter was it Jack Miller who recently retired medically too?
Maybe not with us because he's in Florida recently, right?
Yeah, I thought that he medically retired. And then there was another quarterback that transferred to TCU that medically retired too, right? God damn, I just feel bad for not being able to. That's the sad part though. These guys when they medically retire like that, you just kind
of fall by the wayside, unfortunately.
A little bit, yeah.
And that's why I want to mention Court because those things just happened and. Some of them are out of their control, and unfortunately, it's going to end his career. So.
God, that's depressing. Yeah, I feel bad.
Yeah. Do you have anything else, Josh?
No, man. Chris has got one more question. Then we got to go, Chris, because Michael's got to celebrate his wedding anniversary. Got to ask this before y'all cut off. The winner of the Big Ten is the team who walks out of Autzen Stadium on October 12th victorious. Percentage-wise, how much do y'all buy into that statement? Do you want to answer this first?
I would say
I think we agree on this.
I would say it's probably like closer to 80%. I think. I'm giving 10% to multiple other teams, but if you combine the two percentages that Ohio State and Oregon would win the Big Ten, I think they're like 45-35, and like I said, 80% between the two of them, and then you've got a couple 10% to Penn State. 5% to Michigan, and then 5% to a couple random ass teams that could make them.
So I'm reading the question as in, hey, whoever wins that game wins the Big Ten. Is that how you're answering it, or are you just saying,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
it's gonna
yeah.
be one?
No, I'm saying that.
Really?
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, most likely. 80%. I think 80% of the time, one of those two teams should win it. But there's potential that Penn State could have a really good year, right?
I just think that,
That Michigan
yeah,
might not fall as far as we think they might fall,
I
right?
I
There's going to be a surprise team. Who is that? I don't know.
I would say my percentage would
Maybe
probably be.
USC sneaks in there some, like,
Oh no, that ain't
I mean, that's why I said
getting
maybe.
getting
That's what
pretty
I'm giving
wild
a
there.
percentage.
USC comment.
So I'm giving 20% to the rest of the Big Ten to say that you could potentially win the conference. Maybe I should give 10%, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, I'm saying that 8 out of 10 times, whoever wins that game is going to
God
win the Big
damn, I can't. I was so confident we were going to agree on this one. God damn it,
Ten.
dude.
Where are
Fuck,
you
we
at?
need. I don't know. You got me doubting myself. I guess my thought process was like 35% because I just think it's so hard to beat a team twice. Like if Ohio State loses to Oregon, this is why I thought you'd be on my side because if
Sure.
Ohio State loses to Oregon, I'm not panicking yet, right?
Right.
Because it doesn't mean that Ohio State can't beat them in Indianapolis to win the Big Ten. So if Ohio State loses to
Dude,
Oregon, obviously if they lose by fucking 45 points, I'm going to be very upset on this podcast. But if they lose by less than 10 points, I don't think I'm going to be crying a tear. I don't think I'm going to be panicking. I think.
sure.
I've been known to overreact, but I don't think I'm going to be panicking at that point. I think that it's hard to beat a team twice. I think that Penn State is probably the wild card team that could slip in at the back end. So I'm going to give them that extra 30% or whatever's left.
Wow.
But 25%? You want to do 20? I'll give them 20%. We'll give them 20%.
Okay. I don't even
20%,
think they have that good odds to win the conference. I mean, I'm giving
15%.
them 10.
No,
I'm giving them 10.
I'm gonna stick with 20%. I'm gonna stick with 20% because I think it's gonna be one of those three teams. I don't think anybody else has got even close to talent.
Like I said, there could
Yeah.
be a random ass team that sneaks in there into the 2 spot because
That
things
would
just work out there. But things just
That would
work out there. Like, what if Iowa actually has an offense this
What
year
would be the
to go
what
along
would
with
be
to go along with their
the what would
defense?
be
Like, what if? The
ultimate irony would be
they only lose one
that
game.
we have to do all this. Well, the ultimate irony would be that we do all this conference realignment. And Iowa ends up in the back in the Big Ten championship. That would be the ultimate irony,
It'd
and
be
I'm
crazy.
secretly rooting for that. But but no, I just think it's hard to beat a team twice. I think if Ohio State loses to Oregon and Autzen, I don't think that they should. I think that Ohio State is the more talented team. I think 9 out of 10 people would agree with that. But I'm not going to panic. Autzen's a very tough place to play. Oregon is very good. I think they are the second most talented team in the conference, maybe the second most talented team in the country. So yeah, just because Ohio State loses in Autzen on October 12th, I would not press the panic button. But you would? Is that what you're saying or no?
No. I wouldn't.
No, you
wouldn't. No. I'm giving those two teams like an 80% chance to win the conference.
Do you think?
I think.
All right, I know you got to go.
I think Ohio State has a higher chance. That's for sure.
So do you think if they lose, if you think that they lose, do you think that affects their odds in the conference championship game, or do you also believe, hey, it's hard to beat a team twice? Or
I think it's hard to beat a team twice, and there's so much time between their first meeting and then the Big Ten championship game that injuries could happen.
I agree.
It
could be a completely different team. It could be a completely different team. I completely agree. There we go. We end the show with 100% agreement on that topic. Perfect. All right. Perfect.
Well, I do have one quick announcement. As you know, Josh, unfortunately, I'm gonna do it on here. I might as well, right? Okay, so I'm a Buckeye at heart. I went to Ohio State, graduated, varsity lettered in baseball for 2 years. It's been my dream. One of my absolute the last year and a half has been absolutely awesome. It's been amazing to get a chance to cover Ohio State. But I was offered multiple other jobs to leave the USA Today and write for other companies, but I viewed those as more lateral movements, and I wanted to move up in the company. And there was an opening on Fighting Irish Wire to take over as their lead writer, and I had to say yes. So therefore, because of me moving over there and taking over that site, I am no longer writing for Buckeyes Wire. Now, that does not change a thing for me. I will still be very educated about Ohio State. I will still be watching every single game, paying attention to all the recruiting. I did that even before I started writing for Buckeyes Wire. I would watch, an Ohio State game over a Notre Dame game any day of the week. That's just how it is. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. It is bittersweet for me. Like I told Josh, we exchanged some text earlier today, and I was like, I had to take it. It's a career opportunity for me. Um, it made sense. You know, I can expand a little bit more. I get a little bit more, managerial experience, especially in this field, because eventually, like, if I could turn this little side job into my main job, I would absolutely love it.
That's the dream.
So, I had to take it. It sucks though. Like, I love Ohio State. I love Buckeye football. That love will never dissipate. If anything, I love it more now than I did when I was in school. And
well, you're still going to be doing the podcast.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, like, you unfortunately, my written stuff will not be on there anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to, eventually maybe get a chance to circle back. So we'll see.
So you heard it here first. For those of you wondering, no, I am still here to stay.
Yes.
I did not get those same job offers, but Chris, since you're the most active member on here and you have an astute ability to understand Ohio State football, throw in that resume, homeboy, because we're looking for a new writer.
Do it. It's worth it. It's fun. Great group of guys. Phil's awesome. Phil's a good leader. I learned a lot from Phil, and I'm gonna miss working for him.
That's a funny one. That's a funny one, dude.
I'm gonna get to still work with Phil, so not super directly, but we are on the same. Phil and I are on the same level now at USA Today, so I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's good to say, joining that ranks, moving up a little bit. So
part of the elites.
Yeah, like I said, it's bittersweet. I did ask to stay and contribute to Buckeyes Wire, but they were having none of it. So,
Chris, I don't know if you're aware of this.
I just want to let everybody know.
Now Michael might actually be living in that mansion, Chris.
So
be on the look for that.
Unless I win the lottery this week.
No, but I think that's real cool. Notre Dame, they might end up in the Big Ten the next 5 years anyway. So
yeah, they might. They might.
Yeah.
I've never been a proponent of them being independent. I think they miss out on a whole heck of a lot of stuff not being affiliated with the conference. I mean, aside from football, they are. They're an ACC. They're an ACC. Like, it's just weird.
Well, they played the fucking ACC championship back in 2020. Remember?
Right. Yeah.
And they play like 8. What is it? Like 8 games against ACC opponents this year?
7 to 8 games the majority of the season.
Christ, dude, it's fucking.
I mean, they have a natural rivalry with USC in the Big Ten. So, like, moving over to the Big Ten, they played Michigan. They played Michigan State. Obviously, they played the Buckeyes over the last 2 years. And they play Indiana. They play Purdue. It's not like they don't play Big Ten teams. They play Northwestern every once in a while. It's not like they don't play Big Ten teams. So it's like, pick a lane here. And I know Notre Dame people. And I know Notre Dame people won't be happy to hear me say that, but I really think that and especially with the new college football playoff rules, that they can't get a first round bye. I think over the long run, that's going to hurt the program. Not being able to get. I do.
That's a topic.
Say you get an injury to a guy, and he needs 3 weeks, and after conference championship, it's 2 weeks, right? You're not going to get that guy. He's gonna have to, like, you're not going to have him back. But if you get that bye, you get him rested for another week, and you get him back. And say you lose that first week. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do think it's going to play a part. I really, really do. I think you're going to see more national championship winners out of the top 4 than you are from the bottom 8.
Well, I think that's a fact right there. But I also think that I don't think that anything you're saying is wrong as far as the injury goes. And I do agree with your fact about the top 4 for sure. But you get that home game, and it's going to be against someone shitty like Boise State. Yeah. I think that whoever's in the accounting department is going to disagree with your stance.
No. And I get that. Money-wise, it's awesome for this, like, for sure. But you can also still be in a conference, not get that bye, still get that money if you're a top 12 team anyways. You know?
Yeah, but then
Like
you have to.
the
Yeah.
benefits to me aren't like I think to join a conference, I think it outweighs the benefits of not being conference affiliated.
If I was Notre Dame, I would schedule just nothing but MAC schools and Sun Belt schools.
They cupcakes.
And get the fifth fucking bid every time.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a great question. But all right, man, we've kept John too long. You want to shut it down?
Appreciate it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm getting married this weekend.
Oh, it's not your anniversary. He's getting married, Chris.
Well,
He's
I am.
getting
So
married.
We already are married, but we are doing like friends and family stuff, which is almost exactly a year from when we got married. So we got married on the 6th of August last year. It'll be the 3rd of August this year.
So romantic. Look at you getting married, getting promoted. Everything's falling into place, baby.
Yeah, man. That's why I said I'm gonna win the lottery so you can see a real marriage.
No shit. You should buy a fucking lottery ticket.
Good things happen in threes. So
you should buy a lottery ticket.
I'm hoping that third thing is win a couple $100 million.
No shit. No kidding.
All
right, man.
All right. Sounds good. Have a good night. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.